All right, welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing factoring using the greatest common factor. So in short, we call that the GCF. So the GCF, if I refer to that, is called the greatest common factor. Okay, so let's break this down. Greatest means the most, obviously. So we're looking for the highest common number that is a factor between two terms. So a factor is like a multiplication. So if I talk about, okay, well, if I have the number of 2, what are the factors of 2? 1 times 2, or 2 times 1, but it doesn't matter which way you go. What about the factors of 8? I have 1 times 8, 2 times 4, right? That's it. What about x squared? Okay, well, anything times 1, x squared times 1, right, will give me x squared, or x times x. So these are all factors of their given terms. So if I have parentheses, okay, inside I have multiplication. So right now this is in factored form. I have two terms or quantities multiplied together. Okay, so now how do I undo the parentheses? I'm going to distribute, right? So if I distribute, 3 times x is 3x, 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. So when I distribute, I'm getting rid of the parentheses. When I factor, okay, I want to start with an expression, and I want to go back to factored form, which in this case has a parenthesis, so factored form. Okay, so that's my factored form. So if let's start with 3x minus 12. I'm going to start with the numbers first. So I have 3 and I have 12. I want to say, okay, what are the factors of 3? Factors of 3, 1 times 3, that's it. About 12. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. So those are my factors. So now I'm going to say, okay, what is the greatest number that they have in common? 1 and 1, 3 and 3. That's it. So in this case, 3 would be my greatest common factor, just like that. So when I go down, I multiply. So if I'm multiplying to get expanded for, if I want to go backwards, I have to divide. So I want to divide both terms by my GCF of 3. So when I divide down, I'm going to get what's in my parentheses. So divide down. When I divide down, 3 divided by 3 will give me 1. X, right? Negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. And that's what I'm left with in my parentheses. Now what I'm going to take on my outside of my parentheses is what I divided both terms by, and that's a 3. So my factored form would be 3 times the quantity x minus 4. If I ever want to check, I could just multiply it out. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 4 is 12. Negative 12, rather. And I'm good. Awesome. So let's go through a couple more examples. And I have some binomials and trinomials. Actually, all of these are binomials. My next examples on the next page will be trinomials. So let's start with my numbers first. I have 2 and I have 6. Okay, factors of 2. 1 times 2. Simple. Factors of 6. Okay, 1 times 6. 2 times 3. What numbers do they have in common? 1 and 1. 2 and 2. 2 is the greatest number that they have in common. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both terms by 2 to start with. Now I'm going to look at my variables. Okay? I have an x here. Do I have an x here? I do not. So I can't pull out an x if both terms don't have at least an x. So you only can take out a variable if all terms have the variable. Only take out a variable if all terms have at least one. Okay, so 2x -6, they both don't have an x, I can't take out an x. So when I go ahead and divide down, 2 is simply my greatest common factor. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I'm left with x. -6 divided by 2 is -3. Take my 2, put it on the outside, and that is my factored form. Go ahead and pause the video and try example 2. Okay, example 3. Now this case, I'm going to still start with my numbers first. So I have 2 and I have 10. Factors of 2, 1 times 2. That's it. 10, 1 times 10, 2 times 5. Okay, I have a 1, and I have a 1, I have a 2, and I have a 2. Those are my factors. So the greatest number that they have in common is 2 and 2. Simple as that. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both terms by 2. Now look at my variables. Both terms have at least one p, right? P to the first power and p to the second power. So I'm going to take the p to the second power and my p. So what is p squared? Well, what do I multiply together to get p squared? Well, I could do p squared times 1 and p times p. Okay, what about just regular p? The only way I can multiply to get p is p times 1. All right? So when I go ahead and see what factors they have in common, they both have a 1. They both share a p. Now the highest exponent of the variable is going to be the greatest common factor. In this case, it's p to the first power. So I'm going to take out p to the first power. Let me just highlight it. Okay, so those are my greatest factors. So when I go ahead and divide down, 2 divided by 2 is 1. P squared divided by p. Now remember, when I divide like bases, I am going to subtract the exponents. 2 minus 1 is 1, and I'm left with p to the first power. Okay, now I have 10 divided by 2, which will give me positive 5. P divided by p is 1, and I'm just left with p plus 5. So let me erase that. Okay, so now what I'm going to put on my outside is my greatest common factor, which is 2p, and that is my factored form. Go ahead and try example 4 on your own. Okay, finally, I have some trinomials. Okay, so this is very similar to my prior examples. So let's start with my numbers. I'm going to have 3, 3, and 9. Okay, since 3 is the same, you only have to do it once, but if all 3 of them are different, you have to use all 3. So factors of 3, 1 times 3. Factors of 3, 1 times 3. That's it. Factors of 9, 1 times 9. 3 times 3. Okay, great. All the numbers that they have in common, 1, 1, and 1, have to be all 3. And then I have 3, 3, and 3. The greatest number is 3. Just like that. Okay? When I go ahead and divide, I have to divide every single term. Okay, cool. Just move this over just a tad. Okay, so now I'm going to look at my variable, g squared, g, and I don't have a g. So if all 3 terms don't have a g, I cannot take out a g. Okay, so just like I said in the prior slide, all terms have to have the variable. So now when I divide down, I'm going to get what's in my parentheses. 3 divided by 3 is 1. I'm left with g squared. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1g. Okay. Positive 9 divided by 3 is positive 3. Take my 3 and put it on the outside. That's my factored form. Okay, so example 6 is going to be the last example we're going to go through. It's a trinomial. Looking at my coefficients right here, or my numbers, I have a 2, I have a 4, and I have an 8. factors of 2, 1 times 2, factors of 4, 1 times 4, 2 times 2, factors of 8, 1 times 8, 2 times 4. Cool. So now when I go ahead and circle what I have in common, they all share a 1, they all share a 2. So I'm going to divide all by the greatest number that they have in common, which is 2, 2, and 2. So divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Awesome. Now looking at all of my terms, they all have at least one m. One m. So I could take out some sort of variable. So let's say m cubed, m squared, and m. Okay? All I did was take out those variables. Okay, so how do I multiply? What do I have to multiply to get m cubed? Okay, just two factors, m cubed times 1 and m squared times m, right? When we multiply, we add the exponents, which give me m cubed. And that's it. I know you have m times m times m, but we want to keep two factors. So what about m squared? M squared times 1, m times m, right? Will give me m squared. What about m? Just regular m times 1. That's the only way I could get m. Go ahead and circle what you have in common. They all share a 1, and they all share an m to the first power. So if they all share an m to the first power, that is what I'm going to be able to take out. So in that case, that is my greatest common factor for my variable. So an m, and m. So when I divide down, I'm going to get what I have in the parentheses. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. M cubed divided by m to the first power. Remember, subtract 3 minus 1 is 2. So I have m squared. Then I have negative 4 times 2, which is negative 2. M squared divided by m, subtract the exponents, I have m to the first power. Then I have positive 8 divided by 2, which is positive 4. M divided by m, it cancels out, divides out to 1. That's what I'm left with in my parentheses. I'm going to take my 2m, place it in front, and that is what I'm left with. Okay, so that concludes the lesson on factoring using the greatest common factor. Just always make sure, look at your parentheses, okay? When you have your final factor form, look at your parentheses. If you could factor the parentheses further, that means you do not take out the greatest common factor. All right, good luck, and see you next time.